We're going live.
No. We'll do it live.
This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
Good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit late. Had some technical difficulties. I don't know what happened, but like 2 minutes before I was about to go live, all of a sudden I couldn't get any sound. I go to play my intro and there's no sound. And I'm like, what the hell happened? It worked when I joined the studio. Stupid StreamYard. So I ended up edging the algorithm a little bit, I guess. I don't know if that is a real thing. I know like Fresh and Fit and I know Rolo, those guys, they do that quite a bit where people call it edging the algorithm, but I just think that those guys are just habitually late. I think that's really what it comes down to. Oh, man. How are you guys doing? We're at the end of the week here. If you guys are watching on Facebook or on Twitter, come on over to YouTube, drop a like, and head on over. I'll put this in the chat here. There we go. Oh, man. Glad it's Friday. Going running after this, so I'm in my running attire here. It's cold outside. When you go running in the 20-degree weather, you have to put layers on. All right. Before I get started today, let's do some housekeeping. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. You know what to do. Drop a comment. Sound off in the chat. It helps the lives go by better when you guys are talking with me, participating, asking questions, stuff like that. If you guys aren't doing it already, follow me on social media. All the links are in the description. I have a new TikTok account I've been talking about. It's at Best Men's Pod. My original account's still there, Come On Man Pod, but nobody sees it. In fact, I'm getting all these people because what I'm doing is I'm going through periodically and I'm going through my followers on the Come On Man Pod account, and I'm following those people to sort of give them a heads up that there's a new account. And those people come, they follow me back and they're like, hey, man, it's great to see you. It's great to see you back. I'm like, I never left. I never left. They're just hiding my shit from you, man. So what I've been telling those people is like, follow me on Instagram, Don't just follow me on one social media because you might not be seeing my stuff there. I might be shadow banned there. I might be permanently banned there. And you won't see my content anymore. If you like my content, follow me on a couple of places. That way, there's some redundancy. You know what I mean? Like, I've been working in IT for like 18 years. We'd like redundancy. It's a good thing. If you want to support the show, consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. You can join for as little as $10. The $10 gets you on the beer credits at the end of Monday's episodes on YouTube. And you also get all of the interviews from Monday's episodes ad-free. So none of this stuff, none of the intro stuff, no YouTube ads. It's literally just the interview portion. You get that all ad-free. And then also for all Patreon members for the entire month of February, you guys get access to my Law of Attraction course for half off. So I posted it on Wednesday's show, or I talked about it on Wednesday's show, but right after on Patreon, I posted a coupon code for Patreon members. So if you're a Patreon member already, log into Patreon and check the posts. You'll get that coupon code if you've been thinking about joining or taking the course. If you guys have been thinking about taking the course, but you're like, it's a little bit out of my price range, join the Patreon for $10 and then get this for half off. It's a solid deal. And then if you guys want coaching, join the Patreon at level 2 or 3. Level 2, it's unlimited text support over Telegram. So, you could ask me questions anytime, pretty much day or night. If I'm up, like I'm not usually up at 3 in the morning, so I'm not answering questions at 3 in the morning, but I'm up pretty late. Send me a text, send me a screenshot. If you're stuck on a dating app and you're in a conversation, you don't know what to say to a chick, you want some inspiration, some ideas, like, hit me up. And I get back to you guys pretty quickly on that. And then if you want more support, then join tier 3, and then you get a monthly voice or video call with me, whatever your preference is. But we can actually sit down, have a call, go over what your goals are. Sometimes guys just want to call and get things off their chest. They just want to, someone that they could talk to. Like, I'm a good listener, so you could do that too if you want. Another way you can support the show is by sending a super chat. You can send a super chat for as little as, like, I think $10. $10. As little as $10. No, you can send it for, I think, as little as $1, I think, on super chat. I'm pretty sure that's like the lower limit. So you can support the show that way as well. Get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com. You get free stickers when you do that. And the way I do it, I manage it all with MailChimp. And so periodically, like, I have the free version of MailChimp. And so you can't do any automation with the free version. So when you sign up, you don't typically get an automated welcome email. What I do is, like, about once a week, I go through and look for new members, and I send them an email saying, "Hey, thanks for joining. If you want your free stickers, just reply back to this and send me a good mailing address, and I'll send you some stickers free of charge, postage paid." But if you guys aren't getting that, like, I DM me on Instagram, because I think a lot of people's messages are going to their spam filter. So just let me know. But get on the list. You get these free stickers. And then if you like these designs, I have merch available now with a Teespring store. So you can get these designs on, like, a t-shirt or a coffee mug, or whatever that supports the show as well. In fact, on YouTube, I have Teespring linked below. I have a new design on there. I just put it out yesterday. My friend Chris Kokowski gave me this idea because I said in one of these live streams that there's no cold approach in a cow pasture, and he's like, "Dude, that would be perfect for merch." So I've got merch now where it's got some cows in a pasture. There's a sign that says "No cold approach in the pasture." So if you live out in cow country like me, I think you'll find that funny. So check that out. And you can go to merch.comeonmanpod.com to see all those as well. But on YouTube, it's linked below. And so I already mentioned the Practical Law of Attraction course. So check that out as well. And I will play you a commercial for that, and then we'll get started with the topic at hand. Do you want a positively unfair advantage in life? Most people tiptoe through life hoping they'll make it safely to death. They let life happen to them. Up until now, I'm assuming that's been your situation. Am I right about that? But you know deep down that you're destined for more. You know that you deserve more money or better relationships. Yet you're stuck doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results. That ends today, because you're going to check out my Practical Law of Attraction course. My Practical Law of Attraction course will give you the tools necessary to write your own story. You will be in the driver's seat of your life, not just the passenger. Your life is already getting better because you're listening to this message right now. Access this course at loa.comeonmanpod.com. That's loa.comeonmanpod.com. When you're done with this course, the results that you see for yourself will be better. Others will see how your life is changing for the better. And you'll know that everything in this course is true because your life will be better. But the choice is up to you. You have to decide if you want to stay where you are or achieve goals so big that it will blow your mind. The law of attraction is nothing without action. So what are you waiting for? Act now. Act now, guys. One of the big things with the law of attraction, and I talked about it the other day when I did a live stream on the law of attraction. And One of the things that I realized with it is that when you get inspired thought, when you get an idea to do something, like you need to jump on it. You know what I mean? So if you've been thinking about doing it, stop thinking about it. Just join the course and you can get it for 50% off if you join the Patreon. What? What's the lay count? I love these guys that ask that. It's funny because I can give you a number, but how would you verify it? You know what I mean? Like, you want me to be like John Anthony lifestyle and be like 1,500 bitches? Uh, I mean, maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, but how do you verify that shit? So, yeah, no, I'm not going to give you any number. Doesn't matter. So, Batman origin story. You guys want to know a little bit about me, huh? If you guys are tuning in, here's all the dirt. Here's all the dirt, guys. Occasionally, like I'll go on people's podcasts and they'll ask me that, like, how did you get in this space and whatever. But I give a sort of a Cliff's Notes version of it. So you've probably heard a little bit about that, but I've never really gone like in depth on my my whole like dating and relationship history. So we're gonna sort of go into that a little bit. Let's start back in high school. Let's go back in time. I went to Evergreen High School in Colorado. Graduated from Evergreen High School. If you guys have ever watched South Park, it's I believe it's Trey Parker. Trey Parker. He's one of the partners of Matt Stone and Trey Parker. They created the cartoon South Park. Well, Trey Parker went to Evergreen High School, and South Park, the show, is largely based on real people, and I knew them. Right? There's Mr. Mackey on the show. He's you could tell he's based on a counselor, a school counselor we had in middle school named Mr. Lackey, who was a real guy. Mr. Lackey hated being called dude. So all of us kids in junior high were like, "Hey, what's up, dude? Hey, what's up, my dude?" And he was like, "I'm not your dude, okay?" Yeah, he was a real guy. So that was the area I grew up in. Basically, the think of South Park, the cartoon. That was where I grew up. So in high school, I had it was funny. Like in elementary school, I always had little girlfriends. You know what I mean? Like I had little girlfriends like all through elementary school, and then in junior high, I started wearing glasses. Started wearing glasses all the time, and I didn't have any girlfriends like pretty much all through junior high. And so and I always attributed it to glasses and how I looked really nerdy with the glasses on. And I had those until my sophomore year in high school. And then my junior year, my mom finally got me some contacts. And that's when I started, maybe it was like a confidence thing. It was probably more of a confidence thing, but I started getting pretty good with girls, my junior year again. And I started having girlfriends. And ended up getting one girlfriend that like I lost my virginity to. And I lost my virginity at like 16, with this gal. She was a cop's daughter. I remember I went to her house for the first time, and her dad's walking around with a pistol on his hip. And she didn't tell me that her dad was a cop. I was just like, why is your dad walking around with a gun? I think he was doing that because he was on call that night, but also, to be that intimidating dad type person. But so that happened. That lasted about 6 months, because I'll go into this a little bit more, but I was always that blue-pilled beta guy pushing for a relationship, too needy, wanted to spend all my time with her and just smothering chicks, right? So that lasted about 6 months. Pretty sure she cheated on me. She went to, it was like a New Year's, and she went to a party, a sleepover party at her friend's house, and her friend's brother was home from the Marines. And this kid who was a Marine was like, jacked, perfect hair, chiseled, like, and I was like, a friend of mine ended up dating this gal after me for a little bit, and he said that she confessed to him that she cheated on me. So I'll take his word over it. And then I ended up with this let's see, I ended up dating this Mexican chick for a while my senior year. And that lasted 7 months. So, you know, big deal. That chick was a freak, man. That was my first experience with a chick that was just like a total freak, you know. And she was crazy. She was absolutely crazy because, like, when the relationship started going south, it went south like like before that 7 month mark, right? And so I broke up with her. I think probably about halfway through that, and then she, she called me up to say that she was pregnant. So I was like, "What? Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna do the right thing." And so we got back together. So it was really just a manipulation tactic on her part, though, to get me to not break up with her because she wasn't pregnant. Um, so then, we dated for a little bit longer after that. And then, things started going south again. So I dumped her again and she pulled the same thing. Right. Oh, I'm pregnant. Right. So that time I was like, okay, well, if you really are, then I'll step up, but, we're not getting back together. And, mysteriously, she wasn't really pregnant. Amazing. So that was high school, and then between high school and the Navy, I had a couple of flings between there, and then I ended up in the Navy. I joined the Navy when I was 18. Or actually, yeah, I was 18, turning 19, and left for the Navy. There's no real dating in boot camp. There's some guys that hooked up with chicks in boot camp, but that wasn't me. I wasn't trying to get in trouble in boot camp, and for some pussy, especially like pussy in boot camp it's dude. There's some nasty looking chicks in boot camp. I remember when I was in the galley one day, we had a salad bar. So I went up to the salad bar and looked through like the sneeze guard, and there's a chick on the other side, and that chick had a full on fucking beard. I was like, ugh, like I lost my appetite. I was like, I've never seen an actual bearded chick before. It was gross. And I remember like later that night we're in berthing, and there's our RDC. RDC means recruit division commander. If you didn't know, it's kind of like a drill instructor. But our RDC was sort of having a Q&A session, and I remember like raising my hand saying, petty officer, why do we have to shave every day, but the girls don't? He was like, drop. He made me do push-ups for that kind of shit. So, good times. So, so I didn't really date much until I got out of boot camp and went to A school. I went to A school in Virginia Beach, in Dam Neck. There's a fleet training center at Atlantic there. And so I went to A school there, and there were some hot chicks at A school, man. There were some good looking chicks. So I was out all the time. We would go cruising for chicks in Virginia Beach. We'd go driving down the street. We'd go to the clubs down there all the time. It was great, man. Hooking up. There was two Navajos that I hooked up with during that time. There was one chick, like I really didn't have any interest in her. She just she just really liked me, and she was dating this guy at the time. Right. But that guy was like this, clingy, needy beta type, even more than me. And at that time I was just like, I didn't give a shit, because I didn't want anything serious because I was only going to be there for like 3 months. Right. So I was sort of in the mindset of hit it and quit it, which is, kind of where you like, you don't have that attachment to outcome. That's sort of like natural, kind of like alpha behavior. So I did pretty good with the chicks in A school. So this one chick, she really liked me. And so she was going home she lived up in Pulaski, New York. And she wanted to know if I would go with her on this road trip back to New York. And I was like, nah, I don't want to go up there. She's like, oh, I can get you a home cooked meal. And if when you're in the Navy and you've been eating nothing but galley food for like months and months, home cooked meal sounds damn good, you know? So I was like, yeah, all right, I'll go with you. And so we were driving up there, and we ended up you know, I started, what did I do? I was playing this like sort of grab ass game where I was taking like her lighter, because we were both smokers. I took her lighter, and I was like playing keep away with it, and I ended up putting it down my pants, and she went for it, and next thing you know, we ended up off the Pennsylvania Turnpike, getting it on in the car. She had a boyfriend at the time. Crazy shit. And then there was this other chick that when I was leaving A school, I told this story on somebody else's podcast too. There was this other chick where I was leaving A school, and I wasn't leaving like that day, so I had to stay an extra night. So the Navy put me up at the Navy Lodge there on base, and so I was like, well, I got nothing better to do. So I walked back over to the barracks, and this chick I knew who was she was in IS A school, an intelligence specialist A school. So I knew her the whole time because, the OSA school, I was an operations specialist, by the way. OSA school is right, our barracks are right next to the ISA school barracks. And so I went over there, and I saw this chick that I've known this whole time. She was dating one of my friends pretty much the whole time. They ended up breaking up a couple of weeks before graduation. So she was single, ready to mingle. And I walked over there. I was like, oh, hey, I'm staying at the hotel. And I was like, you want to come over and hang out? And she's like, yeah. So this chick comes over, washes her feet in the bathtub, and then like basically gets in pajamas and is just like hanging out. And I'm like, oh, oh, it's one of those, like, I didn't realize, like, I had an idea in my head, like, yeah, I could probably get some, but I didn't realize like how easy it was going to be. She basically was like, I'm ready to come over for a hookup. And we did. It was like, up until that point in my life, like that was like the best lay I'd ever had. That chick she was older than me, because I was 19 at that time, and I think she was in her I think she was like in her mid 20s or whatever. She had been around a little bit, and man, that chick was a snooty sloot, and that was great. They always have boyfriends. Chicks are never single, right? Oh man. So yeah, that was A school. That chick too. So I went to C school after that too. I went up to Wallops Island for Aegis school. And Wallops Island's like I don't know, hour or so. I can't remember how far it was, maybe an hour or two from Dam Neck. And so we rented a bus and went back down to Dam Neck one weekend, and took that chick back up to Wallops Island with me, and we basically banged that whole weekend, and then I never saw her again. Actually, that's not true. I saw her maybe a year and a half later or so. She was on base in San Diego, and at that time, I think she wanted to hook up. She was staying at a barracks on base, and she invited me over to her barracks, and she wanted me to spend the night, but she was sitting there telling me how she was dating these guys in buds, and or she was dating a guy in buds, right? And I typically don't like, sleeping with chicks that like I know that they have a boyfriend or whatever. So at that time I was like, no, I'm not spending the night. And then also at the same time, the barracks had a no spending the night policy, and I didn't want to get in trouble. And I also didn't want to have to, I think the biggest thing though was I didn't want to have to get up crazy early to sneak out of the barracks and get back to my ship before muster. I think that was the main thing, because I'm not a morning person. I think that was the main thing. But I if I would have stayed the night, we would have ended up hooking up again, I'm sure. So yeah, so the Navy was interesting, man. Like had a few flings in the Navy, and ended up meeting my wife about my second year in. I went home on leave. Oh, you know what? There was a couple of times where like things happened on leave. I went home on leave one time. I think it was the first time I went home on leave. My brother was living in an apartment in Denver. And man, I'm a dick, dude. But I went to and hung out with my brother primarily down at his house. And there was this chick that he worked with, and she kept coming over to his place and hanging out. And one thing led to another one night, and we were all drinking and stuff like that. And I ended up banging this chick in the closet, right? Of this house. Ended up banging her in the closet. She ended up coming back pretty much the whole week I was there. And we banged a couple more times. My brother was so pissed at me with that because he really liked that chick, but my brother has like no social skills. So he had no chance with this chick. So, I didn't want anything to go to waste. But maybe it was an asshole move, but it's like, I don't know. Can you really claim dibs on chicks? I don't know. Maybe it was an asshole thing to do, but I did it anyway. And then another time I went home on leave, and this is where I met my wife. So, man, getting just this far, this is going to be a long episode. So I met my wife. My wife was going to college with a good friend of mine, or actually a couple of friends of mine from high school. And so my friends from high school, they were throwing a house party together, and we were all underage. We were all 19, I think. But my wife, she's 3 years older than me. And so she was old enough to buy alcohol. So they invited her to the party so that she could buy all the alcohol. Well, she used to sell like Cutco knives. Have you guys ever had Cutco knives? She was doing that kind of thing. And she was trying to get a sale done. And so she was really late to this party. And then my friend and I that night, he was a mobile DJ. And so he invited me to go to a DJ gig of his. And I got to play DJ for the night with him. And we ended up going up to this house party. We're going to meet her at this King Supers, which is a supermarket. And she was running late. She didn't get to the supermarket till like midnight. So she gets there, we drive to the party. And when we get there, my other friend who was sort of hosting the party, he had a girlfriend. His girlfriend went to Columbine High School, and they were, and she was there during the shooting. That's a fun fact. And so anyway, his girlfriend, I told him, hey, have your girlfriend bring 2 girls to the party, so that for my friend and I. And that was how you used to meet chicks back in the day, right? That sort of social circle thing. You would say, hey, tell your girlfriend to invite 2 of her friends. And then, that you would meet people a little more organically that way. That doesn't happen so much anymore, but so he did. His girlfriend brought 2 chicks, but they all were leaving. When we got to the party, they were literally walking out because it was late. It was after midnight at this point. So these chicks are leaving, and we're like, what? We just got here. This is bullshit. So I was like, our night's shot. My wife was late, caused us to not be able to meet and hook up with these chicks. I was like, the night's over, whatever. Walk into the house. The whole thing's a fucking sausage party, right? It's just dudes in there. My wife was the only chick. And so now we have alcohol though, right? Like that, they've been waiting all this time for alcohol, but she finally brings the alcohol. So I'm just like, whatever. I was sort of at this point resolved that like nothing was going to happen. So I didn't have that attitude of like, I'm trying to push for anything. I just didn't care. Right. That's actually a really attractive quality for chicks, right? Not being needy. So I'm just like, whatever, just drinking beer, hanging out. And she sees a deck of cards and she sits down at the table. She goes, does anybody want to see a magic trick? And I was like, yeah, I love magic. Show me your magic trick. So I sat down and she starts doing her magic trick. And this other guy from high school, this guy, Seth, comes up and he's watching her do it. And he's like, oh, I know how you did that. And I was like, dude, why don't you shut the fuck up, man, and just enjoy the trick. And she was like, oh, I like that. Hung out with me for the rest of the night. Spent literally the whole night together, but I kept trying to get her to go back in the bedroom, but she wouldn't do that because she's a good girl, And then the next morning, I walked her out to the car, and I was like, dude, I have to go for a kiss on this, man. Like, I have to go for a kiss because, if I don't make a move and shoot my shot, like, I'm gonna lose my opportunity forever. So I went in for a kiss, and that was pretty much it. Like, after that, we spent the whole rest of the week together. That I was on leave. We went and saw movies. We, went to Funplex. We did every night that I was there for the rest of the week, and we basically decided to keep in touch. So I went back to San Diego and started this long distance relationship with her. And I ended up buying my first cell phone just so I could call her, right? Because I was calling her like in the evenings from a payphone. I had to I had to leave my ship, go down the pier, walk over to the McDonald's on base, and that's where the payphone was. So I was doing that for a long time, and I was like, man, this is really inconvenient. I should probably just invest in a cell phone. So I got my first cell phone to talk to her, and there was no reception on my ship. The reception sucked so bad. I had to go up to the signal bridge to get any kind of reception. So I'm up on the signal bridge. There was one little area on the signal bridge that got reception. You had to stay like right in the zone. So I'd call her from there. Otherwise, it was like emails back and forth. That was it. So eventually, a couple of months later of doing that, convinced her to come to San Diego for a visit. So she saved up her money. She was a cocktail waitress at the time, and she saved up her money and came out for a week in San Diego. And we spent the whole entire week there. And one of the things that she did was, oh, I should say this too. This was funny because I was broke. I was broke as a joke, right? When you're in the Navy, like especially if you're junior enlisted, you don't make shit, right? You don't make any kind of money. I lived on the ship. So the first night there, what I did was I brought her on board and I took her to the galley to eat. Because it didn't cost me any money. And I thought it would be a fun experience for her to experience the Navy ship food. So if you're junior enlisted, do that, you know, on your duty night, bring your girl on the ship and serve her some Navy food. She'll think it's a fun experience, but it's really just free shitty food. So anyway, I spent the whole week there, and that she was trying to convince me. She was saying, you know what? You should go AWOL, and we don't call it AWOL, we call it UA, by the way. But she said, you go AWOL and we should run to Canada. And I was like, well, if you're so willing to move to Canada, why don't you just move to San Diego? So she decided, yeah, I'm going to do that. So she saved up some money. I saved up some money, and we went halves on an apartment in Imperial Beach, San Diego. And she moved in with me. And it was like maybe 3 months after that we ended up eloping, right? Because I was dumb. Dude, I was dumber than shit. I was a young kid. Always, every girlfriend that I had up to this point, I was like imagining myself marrying her, right? I was like, oh, that's what you do. And I dated one girl at a time. I had never spun plates because it was, too difficult, right? So it was always like serial sort of monogamy, or at least trying to, right? Like I would hook up with a chick, and then like she wouldn't be interested, and it was just like, crush, I got to start over again. So I was always like in the mindset of like, that's what you do, right? You date, you find your soulmate, and then you get married, and you have the white picket fence and 2.5 kids. So when she moved in with me, I was like, oh, she's the one, man. She's the one. And on top of that, we were also getting ready to go on deployment. So I wanted to make sure she was taken care of while I was on deployment. I had moved her out to San Diego. It was my responsibility to make sure she had medical, and, if anything happened to me, she would be okay. So I eloped, right? I told my parents that we were going to get married, but we were going to just do a small justice of the peace wedding. And my parents were like, oh, well, my mom was like, well, I'm coming down for that. And I'm like, we don't want you to come down for that. We're just eloping, we were going to do the elope thing and then have like a big wedding later for the family, after I come back from deployment. But my mom and her mom, they were all insistent on it. So we just said, oh, well, we decided not to do it. and we did it anyway. So we eloped, didn't tell our parents, and just dumb, dude, just dumb kid shit. I at that time I was 20 years old. Yeah, I was 20 years old. I had like just turned 20, I think, by that point. Uh, got married, went on deployment. Somewhere in the middle of deployment, though, we ended up getting sortied to the Middle East. So um, we were in Port Kelang, Malaysia, and we got orders that we had to head to the Gulf. There was like shit was going down, right? So I was like freaked out a little bit. They shut down all communications on the ship, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to war," you know. And I didn't know like when the communications were going to come back on. I'd never experienced that before. I when I first got on my ship in '98, they were already in the middle of deployment and they were getting ready to leave the Persian Gulf. So I showed up in the Middle East for that, and then just experienced all the fun stuff like in Australia on the way home. Like I didn't experience all the shit show that is, you know, you know a cruise in the Gulf. So this was my first experience doing that. So we got sortied, and I was like, well, I don't want something bad to happen to me in the Middle East and my parents not know that I you know, got married. So we still had snail mail. So I wrote a letter out to my parents saying, "Hey, you know, we're on our way to the Middle East, and some bad stuff's going down, and I just, you know, I thought it would be good to let you know this, that I got married, and you know, we went ahead and did that anyway." So I mailed that out, and it was like a day later that the communications all came back up, and email started working again and stuff. And it was like, God damn it. If I just waited a couple of days, could have kept that secret. But so I sent an email to my wife saying, "Hey, just to let you know, I sent a letter to my parents, letting them know about it. So you should probably let your mom know, your mom and dad know." So the cat was out of the bag at that point. Let's see here. Uh, so yeah, that was pretty much the story of us eloping. We did have a big wedding, you know, the following year. I was still 20 years old, still couldn't buy alcohol. And man, just she could though, right? She bought all the alcohol for a reception, but like, dude, I was 20 years old, married. Uh couldn't even buy alcohol at my own reception, right? Like I had to have my wife buy the alcohol for me, you know? Like fucking sad, dude. Like just I look back on it now like, damn, that was dumb. But good things happen, right? I ended up having 2 kids with her. 2 great kids. Love my kids. Um so we had our first daughter, our first kid. She was a girl. That was in 2005, and it was like right after that where things really started, I think, going downhill. You know, part of that was like her mom came to live with us for a while. Her mom was always the kind of person that just always needed to mooch off somebody. And so she came and lived with us for a while, and the idea was that she was going to stay with us until she found a job, and then she was going to get her own place. Well, she never lifted a finger to try to get a job. She was just there mooching off of us, and luckily, we ended up pissing her off, and she ended up moving out and moved in with her sister out in Albuquerque, and that was great because like she lived with her sister in Albuquerque until she died last year. So from 2005 until 2022, she was living in Albuquerque with her daughter, and so we dodged a major bullet by pissing her off one day. It was great, but yeah, I mean, our relationship was starting to get really rocky after we had our first kid. And then we ended up having another kid after that. A couple years later, 2009, we had my son, and we decided to buy a house. We needed to buy a house. So that was fortunate timing too, because 2009 was like bottom of the market, right? That was like right after the major housing crash. We were finally able to afford housing in San Diego. San Diego housing got so outrageous during that time, right? 2007, 2008, it was so high. It's very much like it is right now if you pay attention. But like the smallest two-bedroom shack was like a $500,000. $500,000. Hey, good morning, Matt. Good to see you. Hey guys, support the show. Send a super chat. So anyway, bought our first house, lived there for a couple of years, but that was when things were really bad, right? Bought this house, things weren't getting better. I I should backtrack a little bit. One of the things too, when we had my daughter, I was working in IT. I was just started in IT at that point. I was basically interning for a company called WebSense, and WebSense is now I think called ForcePoint now, but WebSense back in the day was like one of the early porn filters out there, right? Like companies would buy it to keep their employees from like surfing porn sites or doing time wasting stuff like watching basketball game, watching YouTube in the middle of the workday, stuff like that. So I was interning there and I was trying to work my way up into a help desk position. And I was at the time, like if someone called out sick from help desk, I would volunteer to sit in on help desk to learn it. That's where I really learned how to like troubleshoot computers and all that kind of stuff. And so I worked really hard. And when a position finally opened up, I pitched my boss saying, hey, instead of hiring someone outside, I'm reliable, blah, blah, blah. So he gave me that promotion. So I called her up the day that I found out that I got promoted. I said, hey, they promoted me to help desk. I'm getting a raise and blah, blah, blah. At first words out of her mouth were, can I quit my job? Like, I guess, but didn't you hear? And she's like, oh yeah. Congratulations. But like she really just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But the funny thing is going back in time in the Navy, there was a period when she first moved into that first apartment where she started going to school at San Diego State. And she had asked me if she could just, quit her job so she can concentrate on studies. Right. So I ended up getting a second job when I was in the Navy to support her while she did that. And that ended up becoming too difficult. And I finally told her like, hey, I can't do this anymore. I can't do two jobs. You have to get a job. So, so that was a red flag, right? That was something I should have looked at early on. Like she's just looking for early retirement, right? There's nothing wrong with stay-at-home moms per se, if that's like really what they want, if they are really doing it for the kids. But my ex-wife was never doing it for the kids. She was always doing it because she just didn't like to work. So get this job when my daughter's born. And that's what happened. She asked me if she could quit. So she ended up not working from that point on, basically. And I think that's really where everything went downhill. Because I told her, like, look, if you're not going to work, then I'm not doing anything at the house. I'm not washing laundry. I'm not, doing dishes. Like that's your job. Your job is taking care of the house, taking care of the kids. I put the food on the table. Like that's my job. Well, she would slowly start pushing things onto my plate, right? So one of the things was like we lived in when we had our daughter, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment that was upstairs, and she didn't like having to fight with the other people in the laundromat. So she was like, "Oh, can you take the laundry down to the laundromat and like you deal with all those people and like and the laundry's so heavy and all that kind of stuff." So she wouldn't do any of the washing of the laundry, but she did all the folding and putting it away. And I would agree to that because I hated folding laundry and putting it away, but I didn't necessarily mind washing the laundry. But she would slowly just, nickel and dime that kind of shit and put it back on my plate. And eventually, when we ended up moving into the house after we had my son, I was doing like everything. Like I was doing dishes, I was doing everything, and she was just like oh, I'm depressed. I'm so depressed and laying on the couch and everything. Things just got like really bad, right? She would start fights with me all the time. I talked about it on Rule Zero once. Like there was a lot of times where we were fighting and she knew exactly how to push my buttons, right? She would call me a loser, you know? "Oh, you're such a fucking loser," right? And I used to really let things bother me. I used to have a really bad temper. I still have a little bit of a temper. Like if my kids will do something, it's usually when I've asked my kids to do something numerous times and then they go against me, like so I only have 3 rules with my kids, right? Like do what I tell you to do the first time, think before you act, and what's the other one? Um, be a good listener, right? Be a good listener, think before you act, and do what I tell you to do the first time. And so if ever lose my shit with my kids, it's because they messed up in those 3 areas. And but man, my wife used to just like she knew how to push my buttons. The biggest thing was to call me a loser, right? Like, "Oh, you're such a loser." Like, do I make 6 figures a year, but I'm a loser? I was though. I was fat, out of shape, had no frame. I would always defer to her leadership, right? Like, "What do you want to eat?" Like, I didn't want to pick a restaurant because I was afraid that like I would pick the wrong one and she would be upset, and then I'd have to hear about it, right? But I thought at the time like that's how you're supposed to live your life, like that's how marriage was supposed to be. My dad always says that husbands on TV are like Indians at old westerns; they never win, right? Like that's just how life is. But I said on Rule Zero all the time, like she would push my buttons. We'd get in these really bad fights where like I was losing my shit, and I was like, I knew that like I have to get away from you so I can calm down and talk to you rationally. But she would never let me get to that point. She would just like keep poking and poking because she wanted to keep the fight going. You know what I mean? And so so there was a lot of times where I'm like trying to get out of the house and she's blocking the doorway to not let me go, right? That kind of shit. Like I'm climbing out windows and stuff to try to get away from this woman. So I could get in my car and get the fuck out of there and chill the fuck out, right? And so there was a lot of times where I ended up there was like a 24-hour Mexican food restaurant. Less than a mile from our house. I would find myself in that parking lot eating burritos, just fucking trying to calm down, listening to like coast to coast radio at night, just to try to fucking calm down, get her to go to bed and shut the fuck up so I could go home and go to sleep and have some peace. You know what I mean? And, you know what? You're done. So that happened a lot. I should have left at that point. Like I should have left way before that, right? But I was the kind of guy where like my grandparents never filed for divorce. My parents, they're still together, right? But like so I just thought like, oh, this is just how it is. You made vows through sickness and in health, right? Um, it was really a very toxic relationship. Um, Luckily for me, she finally got up the courage to say like enough was enough, right? So she put this all in play. She's a tactician. She convinced me that we should move back to Colorado to be closer to family. And I hated California at the time. She knew it. I was so pissed off at like all the dumb gun laws out there. Just like the super woke culture that is California. I was done with it. So she knew that. And she was like, we should move back to Colorado. And I was like, yes, let's get the fuck out of this state. Asked my company to, if I could work remotely and move back to Colorado. So we did. And what we ended up doing was I told her, she had talked about that maybe a year or two before that. And I said, well, what we should do is move in with my parents temporarily while we find a place out there. Like that would be the easiest way to get out there. And she didn't want to live with my parents, but this time because she knew that like she wanted out and she wanted to be closer to her family for a support system that we should probably do that. So she agreed to that. We moved in with my folks. This was in 2013. We moved in with my folks, moved all of our stuff into my dad's barn. My dad has like a big barn. And then we were supposed to like go over to Denver every weekend and look for housing. So we would do that. And every house that we looked at, she would drag her feet, right? She would drag her feet. Oh, Nathan, thank you for the support, man. Nathan with a $2 super chat. You get this, buddy. Hold on, let's do this.
I was just going to say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
This guy fucks. Thanks for that, Nathan. I appreciate that. So yeah, anyway, so we moved in with my folks. She drug her feet the whole time. Because I didn't realize what she was doing, but she really didn't want to buy another house with me. We had I think we had like, man, $18,000 in savings from the sale of our house in California. And so she was just dragging her feet, waiting until January 2014 because a new alimony law was kicking in Colorado, where they had a new formula that would have that was going to really benefit her when it comes to alimony. So she was just dragging her feet until January, and then boom, she said, "Hey, I'm going to go visit my sister in Denver." Her sister was really sick at the time, so it was like very convenient. But she's like, "I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to go visit my sister because she's sick." And she used to do that kind of stuff all the time, so I didn't think anything of it. So I was like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." And so she took the kids. I didn't realize, but she had totally packed up all of her shit and put it all in her car. And so she left. And next thing I know, I get a call from her like on a Saturday, and she says, "Hey." No, it was a Friday night, maybe. She says, "Hey, just so you know, I filed for divorce on my way out of town." And I was like, "What? Like, well, what about the kids?" Oh, she's like, "I'm not coming back." So she went to Denver, which is 5 hours away from me. And she's like, "I'm not coming back. I'm staying with my aunt and uncle." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And man, that was the scariest part for me, right? Like, not necessarily that she was filing for divorce, but because she took the kids. So my mom calls my uncle Johnny up. My uncle Johnny had been through divorce, and he comes over, and his daughters have been through divorce, and we're talking about it. And he goes, "Man, you need to get this guy Leish, this guy Leish, who's a lawyer out here in Grand Junction." He goes, "Man," he goes, my daughter's ex-husband hired that guy, and that guy was an absolute fucking shark. That guy made my daughter look like an absolute piece of shit. He didn't have to pay her a dime." And I was like, done. Like, I looked that guy up in online, called his office. It turns out that guy was a criminal defense attorney. He wasn't really a family court attorney. So they put me in touch with their head family court attorney, who ended up being my attorney. We go down there to meet with him, and he's like, "Leish handled that case?" He's like, "He's criminal. He's a criminal defense attorney." He goes, "I don't know what's going on with that case, but I guarantee there's probably some kind of domestic violence situation going on, and Leish just decided to handle everything." But my attorney ended up being really good too. I didn't think so at the time because, attorneys also often talk about like fair and equitable, and they also have to work within the lines, right, of the law. And my attorney basically was like, "Look, with this new alimony law, the only way you can get out of paying alimony in Colorado is if they agree to not pay, or that they don't want your money, right? That's the only way. Otherwise, you're paying something. So the only thing you can do is negotiate it down." So my attorney, in the way what it was it's like half the time of the marriage, right? So we were married 14 years. I was going to have to pay her alimony for 7 years, and it was like, crazy formula. It was going to be a shitload of money, and so he ended up negotiating it down to 5 years, and then he had it as a step down plan. So the first 2 years was like the max amount. And then year 3, step down, year 4, it stepped down, year 5, it stepped down. So it was like I paid her less and less. And then I didn't have to pay her anymore. But the funny thing is, like, she met her new husband about 11 months after the separation, same time as I got into my relationship with Red Pill chick. And which I'm going to get into next. But they waited those 5 years to get married, because if she got married within those 5 years, the alimony would have ended. So she waited until the 5 years were up and then they got married, right? Like she wasn't going to get rid of that cash cow. Tactician, I tell you, tactician. Yeah, my ex-wife's smart, man. So yeah, let's talk about red pill chick. So yeah, get divorced. That year sucked, right? It sucked, but mainly it was because of like, dealing with lawyers, waiting for the court, going down to court dates, it's a lot of hurry up and wait when it comes to divorces. But, about 11 months in, for 11 months, I'm back on the dating circuit. It's my first experience with dating apps and stuff like that. I'm just floundering, right? Like I have no idea what I'm doing with women. I hadn't dated in 14 years by that point. Just, like every date sucked. There was so many catfish dates. I was getting frustrated and whatever. But 11 months later, I meet, I'm going to call her red pill chick, right? Because this is the chick that really sort of got me into this space, I think. So I meet red pill chick and we go on a date, and man, she is super forward, right? She just like, we met at a venue. She's like holding my hand. She grabs my hands. She's like, because I talk a lot with my hands, right? She's like, oh, you're landing airplanes. So she grabs my hands, right? Like when chicks do that, they're looking for an excuse to touch you. Like, dude, like it's on at that point, right? We're standing at the bar and she's like sort of nestling into me, like her butt into me and stuff. I'm just like, oh, she seems friendly. Fucking like I have no clue at this point. We end up leaving that place, going to a second place. We go to an Applebee's and get some appetizers and stuff like that. And it was in the Applebee's parking lot. She just like attacks me, just starts making out with me. We end up in the front seat of her car making out. She wanted to get a hotel room that night. And I was like, no, like, I don't want to do that. I'm a good guy. And so I declined her offer there. Plus I had to get up early the next morning and catch a flight to San Diego. I had to periodically fly back to San Diego for work. So, Matt, good morning again, this time on YouTube. Thanks, brother. So anyway, so I go back to San Diego, and this whole time I'm like keeping in contact with this chick, and I'm like, set up a date for when I come back. And it was like a week later that I was coming back on a Friday. And I was just like the whole time thinking like, oh, this is it's going to be on. She basically wanted to bang like on the first date, in the car. It's going to be on. And so set up a date, get home, and we ended up like banging when I came back from San Diego. And I immediately fell in love, right? First chick I had slept with since my ex-wife, first chick I slept with in like over 15 years, other than my wife. Like this was crazy. Like, oh, I was so in love, And it's weird. Like when you go through a divorce, it's almost like you think, am I ever going to find love again? Am I ever going to, meet a chick? Like, am I ever going to have sex again? Like, that's how I felt because I was a fat piece of shit. I was like unattractive. I didn't think anyone was going to like me. So this chick took pity on me, and she was a slooty sloot. And so we ended up like pushing for a relationship, right? Get into a relationship though, right? I was the first person to say, I love you. Ask her like, where are we? And all this stuff. Matt, I appreciate that. Hit that like button, dude. Yeah, guys. In fact, let's do this. If you guys haven't done this already, like, subscribe, hit those notifications. So I ended up with this red pill chick. Ended up dating her for 4.5 years, man. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that because I felt that the 4.5 years was great. I loved every minute of it, except for there's a couple of things, right? About 2 years in, she was pretty much done. And I think the catalyst for that was I lost my temper at her one day. Her grandma had died. Her grandma died, and I was working on some major projects for work. And at that time I was like really afraid of like job security. And so I'm working on these projects, and she gets home from work early so that we could go down to Durango for the funeral. And I'm not done working on my project. She was expecting me to like have all my stuff packed and be ready to go at that time. And what I should have done probably is, take the day off. But I didn't do that. I decided to work on these projects. I thought I could get everything done before she got home, but I couldn't. So she was mad at me that I wasn't ready. And I said, look, your grandma's funeral isn't paying the bills. All right. This is paying my bills. Like fucking just loss of frame, lost my temper, everything. Right. I think I could go back in time to that moment and be like, that was it. That was the catalyst. Cause after that, like we didn't talk to each other for the entire drive down to Durango after that. Finally, like, tried to make up with her down in Durango, but she was really pissed. She had sent me an email shortly after that, basically saying, we should go back to dating, right? Where what ended up happening was I basically moved in with her. Every other week I would, I'd have my kids up at my house, up here, an hour away. And then on the weeks that I didn't have my kids, I would go down and stay with her for the entire week. And, she decided she didn't like that anymore. She didn't like that arrangement. And so she wanted me to basically, if I was coming down for a date, great, but otherwise go home. Really what she was doing at that time was lining up, her male orbiters. And a funny thing too, during that time, the last 2 years of that relationship, both her kids got themselves knocked up in high school. Right. She was also a chick that had like her oldest daughter. She had her in high school too, right? So a lot of times, bad decisions go down to the next generation, unfortunately, and both her kids ended up in that situation, right? And basically because she was raised by a single mom and the dad was out of the picture. Anytime dad's out of the picture, like that kind of shit happens, I think. So she was raised by a single mom. Dad was out of the picture. And she was doing the same thing with her kids, right? She got a divorce and she basically like alienated her kids from their dad. So her kids, her two oldest kids, like never went over to the dad's house. And both of them ended up, like the oldest one was a girl. She got pregnant her senior year. And then the middle kid was a guy. He knocked up a transgender woman who identified as a man. Like what? Like talk about Jerry Springer shit, right? When they first got together, I remember he went to her and said, "Mom, I got to tell you, I'm gay. I'm dating this guy." And she's like, "What?" She found out it was a transgender, and I said, "Well, if he's going to be gay, it's probably best that he does that with a chick." Right? Like I'm sort of trying to lighten the situation, but that was some Jerry Springer shit, right? Like I should have gotten out of that relationship. Like that was just fucking crazy. And so this transgender person moved into the house. So every other week I was literally like living in this house with this transgender person. It was fucking awkward as fuck. Right. I should have like walked away at that point, but I was in love. Right. So again, she's done with the relationship. She wants space. She ends up, when her son turned 18, basically kicking him and his transgender baby mama, baby daddy, baby person. I don't know. Kicked them out of the house. And she decided she was going to sell her house and move into a condo. And when she did that, there was only like maybe like one or two more times that I ended up spending the night at her place at the condo, because she ended up selling the house, but she couldn't move into the condo for a month. So she kicked her kids out, basically made her son homeless, and then ended up living with her mom for a month. And during that month, we pretty much didn't see each other at all. Like she would come up to my house occasionally, like, but she wouldn't stay. Like she wouldn't stay like for a week or anything like that. She would come up for the weekend and go home. So we barely saw each other, fought a couple more times that month. And then when she finally moved into the condo, I went down there and things started getting really weird, right? She started like, didn't want me to hang out down at the condo for a week. She was like, I really need you to go home and stuff. And it was like, fuck, okay. But I had like all this stuff at her house. Well, she started hanging out with these guys that she worked with, and one of them was so nice of him. He brought a ladder over to her house and let her borrow his spray painter, his power spray painter, so that she could spray the big tall, walls in her bedroom. Super nice of him, super nice of that guy. And after that, I came down, I think the last time I went down there, and I noticed that like my dog's bed is hidden away in the closet, and my toothbrush and my toiletry stuff is all like put away under the sink and like hidden away. And it's like there's a toothbrush holder right here. Why is my toothbrush in the drawer? Kind of weird situation. We all know what happened. And so anyway, she ended up pushing me away so much. I ended up getting so mad that, because she had done this a couple of times by now, that I was like, look, this is not the relationship that I thought it was. And so I basically broke up with her, but that was her plan all along. She ended up getting together with paint sprayer guy, no shock there. Ended up getting with paint sprayer guy. And I found myself back on the dating circuit. Fun fact, she and paint sprayer guy broke up. I know this because she came sniffing back around. You can't go back and see those anymore. There was a there's a podcast episode. I have a podcast episode about like when ex-girlfriends come sniffing back around. I did it with Luke, and it was at this time she came sniffing back around while she was still dating that guy. So this is how like I really found out she was a monkey brancher, right? She came sniffing back around. She broke up with that guy. I found her on dating apps and we went out again, but I wanted to get answers, so Luke and I formulated a plan where I went out with her, would get her to a high point, and then ask her questions. And, found out that she had reached out to me back in like September before that. So this was like a January, I think. And found out that the September before when she reached out to me, it was, she was on the outs with this guy and she was trying to get back with me, while she was still with this guy. So monkey branching confirmed. She denied the cheating part, but I don't believe her. Like that's, it's pretty obvious that happened. And she's a slooty sloot. So, but yeah, so, but the fun fact is that, paint sprayer guy, after they broke up, got with her daughter, and now her daughter and paint sprayer guy are married. Like, isn't that some Jerry Springer shit, right? All right. So, oh man, we're over an hour. I'm going to try to make the rest of this quick here because I think a lot of you guys know what happened after this. So in 2019, when we broke up, found myself back in the dating circuit, but by this time I lost all the weight. Because in 2016, I decided that I was tired of being a fat piece of shit, and I started taking up running again. And she got me into running, so that was a blessing from that relationship. She signed me up for my first 5K. Oh, Afi, look at this, Afi with a $3 super chat. Thank you, man. Here, you get this. You get this. Who's the master? Thank you for the super sticker, man. I appreciate that. So, yeah, blessings to you too. So, where was I? So I lost weight. 2016, decided to lose weight, started taking up running. She got me into it. She signed me up for my first 5K. I thought I was going to die. But I started running, started losing weight, started watching what I was eating, started doing calories in, calories out, ended up losing 50 pounds. So in 2019, when I was back on the dating circuit, I was slim. I was looking good. I was able to get dates. I was able to hook up easily. I ended up going on a ton of dates. But that first year, I was still sniper dating, right? One girl at a time. If this didn't work out, I was disappointed because crap, I got to start all over again, pushing for relationships. So a lot of chicks would, they would go out with me. We would end up hooking up, usually by the second or third date. And then I would never see them again. Ended up getting into a relationship for like a couple months with a cop. I talk about cop chick on occasion. Best date we ever did was I went on a ride along with her once, and she showed me all the drug houses in Fruita, Colorado. That was fun. Let's see here. Dated the cop chick, but same thing, right? Like she was funny. She was my first experience with a chick that was really into being dominated, like, which was funny. Like she's a cop. And although she's like sort of rough and tumble, like on the beat, she liked being the one being handcuffed, so I was like, that was like first time ever experiencing like a 50 Shades of Grey type chick. And I found out after that experience that a lot of chicks like that. They like, maybe not being tied up so much, but a lot of chicks are actually really into that. But they like their hair pulled and that kind of stuff, right? Learned that from that chick. We ended up breaking up for like maybe a week or two. And in that week or two, I ended up hooking up with this pinup model chick for like, and that chick, like, she was just fucking batshit crazy. Right. So I ended up seeing this batshit crazy chick, hooking up with her by like I think that was the third date technically. And it was like that experience where I was like, oh fuck, like you're fucking crazy. And I had to like get out of that chick's house. And then got back with the cop chick, but like we never saw each other. So I got back with the cop chick sort of like on paper, and then broke up with cop chick because I was like, where's this going? This is not going anywhere. We don't even see each other. So dumped cop chick. And it was at this point where I was like, I suck with women. Like I really suck with women, And so that's where I decided I need to start studying this stuff. I'm sure there's books out there that'll teach me how to be better with women. One of the blessings from Red Pill Chick was that she got me into listening to audiobooks and more importantly, self-help books. And before her, I'd never read any kind of self-help books. I'd only ever read novels and stuff. So I was like, I bet you there's books on this. So I read No More Mr. Nice Guy. I listened to The System by Doc Love. That's some old school shit right there. The System by Doc Love really got me into Corey Wayne, because Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man, is largely based on Doc Love's System. In fact, Doc Love in The System talks about how only 3% of men actually understand women. That's where Corey got that, by the way. But I like Corey's delivery of it better. So read How to Be a 3% Man, read Atomic Attraction, read Dating Essentials for Men, started spinning plates. This was where I was like, it never even dawned on me that this was a smart thing. I always thought I couldn't handle more than one woman. So, so I never did that. Realized that spinning plates is actually the most efficient way of dating. Right? Because it makes you less needy. You're not pushing for a relationship. You don't care as much because you're juggling all these other chicks. It sort of keeps that expectation of outcome, away. And that makes you more attractive. It makes it actually easier. And, sort of social proof and pre-selection work for you. Like chicks find you more attractive when you are dating more women, right? Learned that, joined the 3% Man group. I was really active when I first joined that group. And I used to make date update posts after every date, for the most part, video date updates. We'd swap notes in the comments section. Lots of guys were doing that at the time. It was really active group of guys swapping notes. And it was then when I was doing that I got the idea to start the podcast, because I was like, it would be fun to get the guys from the group on the show and like talk to them about their journey, how they got here, get their Batman origin story. And, that's how the podcast started. During the podcast, I started dating a Marine Corps chick. You'll hear about, if you go back and listen to old episodes, like Marine Corps chick was actually on the podcast in the very early episodes. That wasn't a very good relationship. I should have ended that sooner than I did. But learned a lot from it, though. Like you learn a lot from some of these relationships as you're going through this journey of learning to be better with women. But I learned a lot from that podcast. Learned a lot from that relationship. Only dated her for like, I don't know, 3 months or so before I ended that, because she was really hot and heavy in the beginning, but then she started getting like, getting a headache a lot and stuff. And it was like, okay, so you're sort of like reeling me in, but you're not really into this stuff. And like, I don't want a roommate. I'm not looking for friends. So let's go ahead and end it. The fun fact about Marine Corps chick is like 3 months after we broke up, she rushed into a new relationship and immediately got married. Super funny situation. But good on her, because I was never going to marry her. I'm not going to ever get the government involved in a relationship again. So yeah, spun plates for a while, did the podcast, and then met Nurse Chick. I met Nurse Chick on Match.com. I've told that story before. We met on a coffee date, and I ended up inviting her over to my house after the coffee date to watch WrestleMania with me, and the rest is history. Man, this is a long episode. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to all this bullshit. But a lot of guys asked for my Batman origin story. They want like more information. So hopefully I answered a lot of people's questions. Thank you guys for sending super stickers and super chats. I really appreciate that. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Be sure to tune in Monday. My guest is Daniel Krinzel. He invented the Godwalk app. This is an episode where I fully expect my audience to be skeptical as fuck, to be honest. Did this interview. I met this guy through his publishing company or publicist company, PR company. They reached out to me to get him on the podcast. And I thought his story was fascinating because he was a multimillionaire, lost everything. Oh, Thor. Thank you, brother. Thor, you get this. You get this for that.
I was just going to say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
Thor with the $10 super chat. Skull, my savage Viking brother, live from Vegas with Glenn shouting you out. See you live tomorrow on our streams. Yes. Speaking of which, tune into Rule Zero tomorrow. I don't know who's hosting it. Oh man, love the guys in Rule Zero, but it's like Thor and I, we're the noobs, so we're like super excited about hosting when we get to host. So we usually post that, like, hey, this is our show, like, like the Wednesday before, right? Like we have it on lock, we know what we're doing. And, but the other guys are all old hat, right? It's like an afterthought. They're like, oh fuck, am I hosting today? And they post the link like the day of. It's humorous. So I think maybe it's Troy hosting tomorrow, but, just look, just follow us on Twitter. We'll retweet who's ever doing it. But otherwise, tune in Monday. So my guest Monday, like I said, he invented this thing called the Godwalk app. Now, he was a millionaire, lost it all, gained it all back, and then God told him to end his businesses, right? Delete his databases, and start working on this project. And so he's got this app that's supposed to teach you how to get more, not just get more connected with God, but how to actually hear God's voice, right? So I'm listening to it. I'm one of those guys that I'm not there to like argue with my guests or like, get them like, oh, I got you in this gotcha moment. So what I tried to listen to it from an open mind. I try to ask questions that I think that you guys would ask about that, right? Like, when they say that a guy who's talking to God is praying, but if God's talking to them, they're crazy. You know what I mean? So I ask him about questions like that, see what he says. I invite you to watch it though. It's actually a very fascinating conversation. And I really like to let my audience make up their own mind about my guest, right? Sometimes I have guests on that I agree with. Sometimes I don't. It's one of those times, but it's a very interesting conversation. So tune in Monday. You'll at least like his story about how he, lost millions of dollars and gained it all back, I think. Other than that, let's see here. Try to do this quickly. Be sure to follow me on all social media. The links are in the description. Join the Patreon, support the show. You can join for as little as $10. And then for the month of February, if you join the Patreon, you get the Law of Attraction course for half off. So if you've been wanting to do that, get on the Patreon and get that discount. It's pretty significant. Otherwise, get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com. I'll send you some free stickers. All these designs are available in my new merch store. If you look on YouTube in the bottom, you can get yourself a coffee mug or a t-shirt or a hoodie. That helps out the show as well. Sign up for the Law of Attraction course. This is a mindset course, right? If you get your mind right, everything else falls in line, right? It doesn't matter if it's your career, if it's girls, if it's your health. Doesn't matter. If you get your mind right, everything else falls into place. All right, that's all I have this week, guys. We'll catch you on Rule Zero tomorrow morning. Have a good Friday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. Now, go out and get it.